What if everything you knew, your home, your family, your entire city was gone in the time it takes to blink? Not from warplanes overhead or invading armies, but from a single blinding flash, followed by silence so deep it felt like the end of the world. That was the reality for the people of Hiroshima on the morning of the 6th of August, 1945, and again in Nagasaki on the 9th of August. What happened on those days didn't just end a war, it changed humanity forever. World War II had stretched on for 6 long years. Millions were dead. Cities across Europe and Asia lay in ruins. The Axis powers Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan had brought unimaginable destruction. By the summer of 1945, Germany had already surrendered, but Japan continued to fight. The US had already engaged in brutal battles like Iwo Jima and Okinawa, where Japanese forces fought to the last man. Military experts estimated that a land invasion of mainland Japan could result in over 1 million Allied casualties and even more Japanese deaths. So, American leadership considered another option known that had never been used before and was still being tested. This was the Manhattan Project, a secret U.S. research initiative that had been developing nuclear weapons since 1939. The project brought together the greatest minds in physics, including Robert Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, and Niels Bohr. After years of testing and billions of dollars, the world's first nuclear bomb was detonated in the New Mexico desert on the 16th of July, 1945. The explosion lit the sky brighter than 1,000 suns. Oppenheimer later recalled a line from Hindu scripture, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Less than a month later, President Harry S. Truman authorized the use of nuclear bombs on Japan, believing it would force surrender and avoid further bloodshed. The first target, Hiroshima, a mid-sized industrial city with military value but also a civilian population of over 300,000. On the morning of the 6th of August, at 8:15 a.m., a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped a single bomb called Little Boy. It exploded about 1,900 feet above Hiroshima. The force of the blast was equivalent to 15,000 tons of TNT. In an instant, a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun incinerated everything within a 1-mile radius. People were vaporized where they stood. Concrete buildings crumbled. Wooden homes erupted in flames. Those who didn't die instantly suffered unimaginable injuries, burns, blindness, and radiation exposure. Over 70,000 people were killed immediately. By the end of the year, that number would double due to injuries and radiation-related illness. 3 days later, before the world could even process the first bomb, another one fell, this time on Nagasaki. The second bomb, Fat Man, was more powerful, but the mountainous terrain of the city reduced its overall impact. Still, it killed around 40,000 people instantly, with total deaths reaching over 70,000. The blast obliterated hospitals, schools, and homes. It turned thriving neighborhoods into ash-covered wastelands. Survivors described the skies turning red and black. The air was thick with smoke, screams, and silence. For many, death came as a mercy. The effects of the bombings were not limited to the initial explosions. In the days and weeks that followed, people began experiencing horrifying symptoms: vomiting, hair loss, high fevers, internal bleeding. These were signs of acute radiation sickness, a phenomenon scientists barely understood at the time. Some who looked healthy after the blast fell ill and died days later. Others lingered for months, their bodies slowly deteriorating from the inside out. Children were especially vulnerable. Many developed cancers, especially leukemia, in the years after. Pregnant women miscarried or gave birth to babies with severe deformities. The genetic damage didn't stop with the first generation it passed on, affecting lives decades later. The long-term health effects of radiation exposure became a focus of global research. Hiroshima and Nagasaki became living laboratories for the price of nuclear warfare. But the physical damage was only one part of the story. The psychological trauma experienced by survivors, known in Japan as hibakusha, was profound and lifelong. Many faced depression, anxiety, survivor's guilt, and PTSD. Social stigma added another layer of pain. Hibakusha were often discriminated against in jobs, housing, and marriage due to fears that they were contaminated. And yet, amid the devastation, stories of human resilience emerged. Doctors treated patients with whatever supplies they had. Children orphaned by the bombings banded together to survive. Survivors like Sadako Sasaki, a girl who developed leukemia from radiation, folded over 1,000 paper cranes while in the hospital. She became a global symbol of peace and a reminder of the human cost of war. Her story continues to inspire children around the world. After the second bombing and the Soviet Union's declaration of war against Japan, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender on the 15th of August, 1945. For many, the bombings were seen as necessary, evil, horrific, but effective. The war was over, but the debate didn't stop there, and it never really has. Many historians argue that Japan was already on the verge of surrender and that the bombings were unnecessary. Others believe they were used to send a geopolitical message to the Soviet Union, marking the beginning of the Cold War. Some argue that conventional bombing would have sufficed. The morality of using nuclear weapons against largely civilian populations continues to spark fierce debate even today. What is not debated, however, is the transformation of warfare and global politics that followed. The atomic bomb changed everything. It launched the nuclear arms race between the US and the Soviet Union. It created an era of mutually assured destruction, where nations possessed the power to destroy the world many times over. It led to the formation of non-proliferation treaties, arms control agreements, and global watchdog organizations, all attempting to keep that deadly genie in the bottle. Hiroshima and Nagasaki became powerful symbols, warnings of what could happen again. The cities rebuilt, slowly and painfully. Today, Hiroshima stands as a city of peace. Its Peace Memorial Park, centered around the preserved ruins of the atomic bomb dome, is a quiet yet powerful reminder. Every year, on the anniversary of the bombing, people gather to release paper lanterns down the river in memory of the dead. Bells toll, names are read, and a silence falls across the city that once knew too much of it. The survivors have shared their stories so that future generations never forget. They speak in schools, at global summits, and at memorials, reminding the world that peace is not something we inherit, it's something we must choose every single day. As they age, their voices grow fainter, but their message echoes louder. We live in a world where nuclear weapons still exist, over 13,000 of them, many far more powerful than those dropped in 1945. The risk is not gone. Accidents, political conflicts, and terrorism pose real dangers. Hiroshima and Nagasaki remind us that one decision, one flash, one moment of carelessness or cruelty could erase everything we know. The story of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is not just history. It is a mirror. It forces us to ask, what kind of future do we want? One where cities are targets, or one where they are sanctuaries? One where we prepare for war, or one where we build toward peace? We cannot undo what was done in August 1945, but we can honor it by ensuring it never happens again. So, if this story touched your heart, if it opened your eyes, if it made you think, then like, comment, share, and subscribe, because some stories deserve to be remembered forever.